Hello everyone, welcome to my spoiler talk of Daredevil. So before we get started, first of all, this is gonna be a long one, so prepare yourself, get yourself some nice, I don't know, something to drink, something to eat, because this is gonna be a long one. And next up, I forgot to say one thing in my regular review, which is I love the bits of red in the black suit. I really do. Like when Matt has the black suit on, you can see like little bit pieces of red, like a little bit of red. I love that in the suit. And third of all, this I did not say in my spoiler-free review because I kind of felt this might be a wee bit spoilery, but it kind of felt like Assassin's Creed 2 in a sense because of what you do. In Assassin's Creed 2, you take care of each of the Templars before you go after the Grand Master. And here, the same thing happens. You go after the Russians, Nobu. You got like Madame Gao's operation before we go to Kingpin. I like that, you know. So let's get started with the spoilers. And you know how this works. I basically just recap the show and say yay and then call it a day. But we got 13 one-hour-long episodes. We basically have 13 hours of content to get through. So let's get through it, starting with... This show starts off with Matt getting blinded and the Ninja Turtles being born. And Matt being entirely freaked out because he can't say anymore. Meanwhile, in present day, Matt asks for forgiveness. Not for what he has done, but for what he's about to do. Because he got a couple of not nice people putting women in containers for, you know, trafficking. That kind of stuff. And Matt, like any sane person, is like, that's not okay. So he goes in there to stop them. And I really like how, like, the suit looks cool, but also so dumb. It's like a mix of both. It's like so dumb, but also really good. I mean, it's better than the leather suit that he wears in the movie. Even though I like that suit, it's comic book suit. However, the suit also with all the leather kind of just, I don't know, it's not spandex. So he goes in, takes everyone out, which I love the way. The fight choreography in this show is perfect. Absolutely perfect. Don't worry, the next episode is the beautiful scene. But when he takes out everyone, the girls are scared. So he hits the container to scare them into moving because they're petrified. They can't move. He's like, leave. It's like, okay. So the girls are saved. I also like how he throws one of the, like a weapon towards the guy just sitting there eating a hamburger. Fat guy in a, I don't know, lawn chair. Just eating a hamburger. He throws it at him. He falls into the river. Done. Then we have the fact that Matt wakes up the next day. Foggy calls him, and they gotta go and get a building. While also, Foggy bribes a cop named Brett, the only cop that we know for a fact is good. So, they go to the place, and it's funny how nobody really, like, the woman does, like, normal things, and is like, oh my god, I forgot you were blind. It's like, come on, he has a stick. What, does he need to have a sign plastered on his chest? Like, I'm blind. Because she puts her hand towards him. She nods. Like, well, come on. Anyway, but also, the Avengers stuff, the stuff that happened in the Avengers movie, they call the incident now, which is kind of a thing that we're gonna have to go through for the rest of this whole thing. So, meanwhile, because of the fact that nothing good can ever come without something bad, we have this random woman who is a knife in her hand, bloody knife, and a dead co-worker. The cops come in, arrest her. This turns out to be Karen Page. So, Brett tips them about the fact that there's a woman who, you know, could become a client. So they go over there. Matt starts to listen to her heartbeats, and I love how they use the powers of Daredevil as well. You know, with the way that he sees the world on fire later on. The fact that he uses his hearing in order to be able to, you know, hear things. I love that. So, basically, they're being like, alright, look, you were found with a weapon in your own apartment. And she's basically like, yeah, but I was kind of drugged, so I don't remember any of it. I didn't do it. But because of the fact that Matt can hear that she's telling the truth, they become her lawyers. Meanwhile, let's focus on the bad guys. We have Wesley, the fantastic guy, who goes to a man in the park and threatens his daughter to work for him. Well, he threatens his daughter so that the dad will work for him. Because like, oh yeah, hey, we took over Rigoletto's stuff. We're not really interested in the money. We're just interested in your position. So later on, we learn who this man in the park is. He is apparently a guard who's gonna hang Karen in her cell. And when that doesn't work at the end of the episode, we learn that the dude has killed himself in order to protect his daughter. So Nelson and Murdoch go back into there, and they basically are very upset at the cops. And one of the cops is like, I don't care if you're blind, I'll kick you. It's like, did you just threaten a blind person? What kind of a garbage person are you? Now these two coppers are basically working for Wilson Fisk, which we learn later on. But this guy is just so awful. When he gets shot later on in the show, I'm like, yes, prick that he is. So Karen gets released into the custody of Nelson and Murdoch. However, she kind of wants to go home. They're like, yeah, you can't go home. Matt's like, why don't you just stay with me? So she does. And they enter his place, and it's like, oh wow, this is great. And then Matt's like, yeah, I got it for cheap. And also she's like, look, I'm not gonna sleep in your bed, okay? I'll sleep on the couch, you sleep in your bed. And it's like, yeah, that's not really such a good idea. And the reason for that is because outside of his house, he has a gigantic neon sign, which is why he got it for cheap, which I like that. And then Karen changes in front of him and then asks him about his blindness. He's like, I wasn't always blind. I was blinded. I'd still remember what it's like to see. But he doesn't go into it further because otherwise, like, by the way, I'm Daredevil. It's not really something that you spring on people. Or the man in the mask. So Matt starts to ask her about the case. And it's like, he's starting to piece things together because, alright, look, I'm the company. I forgot the company's name. But I'm the company, okay? And, you know, you saw a file that you weren't supposed to see. And why don't I just kill you? Or discredit you? Why don't I just do that? And then Matt asks, do you still have that file? And she's like, no. But we all know she's lying. Matt can hear that she's lying. And, well, so at night, Karen goes back to her apartment in order to get the file. She gets into her apartment, grabs it, but then a guy attacks her. And then as she is being attacked, Matt comes in and attacks that guy. And we have this really good fighting scene while also getting flashbacks to Matt's father. But before that, we also have the meeting of the bad guys. Because we have the fact that we have Nobu, Madame Gao, Leland, and the Russians are meeting up with what they think is Fisk, but Fisk ain't here. Because we can't reveal the villain yet. That won't happen until episode 3. The end of episode 3, that's when we get Fisk. So Matt fights the bad guy, takes him out, and then wants to take the stuff to the police. And then she's like, and the Karen's like, don't take it to the police. They won't listen or whatever. I forgot what she says. Look, 13 episodes over the course of 2 days, and that was like 2 days ago. So I don't fully remember everything. I'm just going off of my notes. But Matt then says like, alright, fine, we'll tell everyone, and delivers the bad guy and the USB to the bulletin, which prints everything. Which makes Kingpin not happy because we do hear his voice. We don't see him, but we hear his voice. But he ain't happy about that. And Karen is officially free. And Kingpin also tells Wesley, let's start a file on Nelson and Murdoch. Because who knows, they might come in handy. And then at the end of the episode 1, we have Matt boxing. Like he's basically training himself. While every one of the bad guys unalives themselves. Which apparently is the YouTube friendly way of saying things. And we basically get the official start of the show. And we have the fact that the Russians kidnap a kid. Which will come into play later. Speaking of which, let's go to later. Episode 2. We start off with an almost dead Daredevil in a dumpster. And a kid and Claire find him. Bring him upstairs. So Claire takes care of Matt. Takes his mask off. And then learns that he's blind. And basically, you know, kind of stitches him up. She wants to call the cops. But Matt's like, no cops. And then, you know, she stitches him up. And we get a flashback of the fact that Matt's dad wasn't always... He's not the best fighter. He's a boxer, but he's not the best boxer. And we also learned that Matt got some alcohol in his system. Because he needed a steady hand in order to fix his father up. And I do like that. I like the father. Like, he's not like father of the year. But because, you know, he gives his son alcohol and all that stuff. But overall, he's a pretty good dad. Also, we got a funny scene of Foggy singing because he thinks he's alone. And then Karen being like, you know, I'm still here, right? So, go! So, did you hear any of that? She was like, nope. And he was like, you should have said yes. And you sound amazing. But Matt gets help by Claire. And then, you know, Claire asks like, oh, hey, what's your name? And he's like, no, I'm not going to tell you my name. And she's like, I'm going to call you Mike. Which is like, that is so close to what the actual name is that, wow. She almost guessed his entire name. I mean, I know it's 4 letters and it starts with an M. That's close enough for me. She could have been like, I'll call you David. So eventually Matt tells her the truth about the fact that's like, look, there's a boy. The Russians took a boy. I wanted to save him, and it turned out to be a trap, and that's why I ended up in the dumpster. And also that there's a guy with strong cologne going around from room to room in order to find out where Daredevil is. So Daredevil's ready to kill him, or at least take him out. And Claire's like, no, don't worry about it. I'll get rid of him. Don't you worry about it. So the dude comes to Claire's room, Claire's house, and he's like, yeah, there's a criminal who shot up a bodega, and he was basically heading in this direction. Have you seen anything? She's like, nope. Sorry, officer, can't. And then it's like, all right, have a nice evening. So Claire closes the door and is like, look, see, no problem. And Matt's like, yeah, he doesn't believe you. So Matt goes outside, grabs a fire extinguisher, and drops it on the dude's head, which makes me go, all right, so we are how many floors up? Let's say like 4 floors up, okay? You drop a fire extinguisher from 4 floors, that thing is gonna go through his skull. I don't care. But no, it just made him unconscious. So they drag him upstairs and then, you know, tie him up in order to interrogate him. Meanwhile, we kind of learn how Matt's father is gonna die. Because there are 2 shady people who are like, alright, hey, we got you a fight with Creel. It's like, oh, great. And my first reaction was like, hey, look, that's the absorbing band from Ages of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's nice. Little bit of continuity, I guess, but not really. But maybe. I don't know if it was meant to be continuity, but it kind of is continuity, so cool. However, you have to lose, and he's not happy about it, but he eventually is like, alright, fine, I will lose. Meanwhile, we have Foggy, who helps Karen because she's scared. And then also they go to a bar and Foggy is like, well, we get free drinks here because of the fact that we helped this place. And then the woman at the counter is like, you do not get free drinks. And it's like, wow, this makes the city feel very alive too, because they even like the supporting character, even the side characters, like that woman whose name I don't know, but even she gets like a little bit of a character moment. I like that, you know, it makes it feel alive. But Claire, meanwhile, we go back to Claire. Claire's unsure about helping Matt, but also Matt is like, why did you look? Most people find a guy in a dumpster, they call the cops. Why did you help me? And she's like, well, look, I'm a nurse. And people have been brought into the ER. And basically, we heard stories about you, okay? There are stories about this masked man who beats people up who are not good people. Last time I had someone with a couple of broken bones. And I was like, yeah, Matt is a good guy. And so, of course, he's gonna get, like, he's becoming a story in a sense of fiction, I guess you could say. Because people really believe that he's real, but he is real. Meanwhile, back in the flashback, Matt's dad gets a new outfit. And Matt kind of tells him to win the fight instead of give up. But, you know, instead of losing, he's gonna win. So the dad goes to the phone. He calls up someone that he knows. He's like, alright, put everything that I have on my mat, alright? And cash it in quick, because you want to get out of here and lay low after this, okay? But I need you to put it all into the account, into this account. Alright, does it belong to you? No, it belongs to my son, Matt. Do it. So, basically, the dude's prepared to die, which he actually does, sadly enough, because Matt's father then goes up against Creel. We don't get to see the fight, we just get to see the aftermath, but he actually beats Creel. He wins, goes into the locker room, wants to make a quick escape. One issue though, the bad guys are there, and they basically kill him. And there you go. And then we have like little Matt, who's like, that's my papa! And yeah, sad days ahead. Meanwhile, back in present day, we have the interrogation happening. And I like how Matt's like, look, I know when you're lying. And he starts punching him when he's when he's lying. One point, he actually tells the truth. It's like, that was the truth! It's like, yeah, I didn't like it though. So he tries to get the location of the boy out of him. He doesn't say it. So Claire's like, hey, put a knife right above his eye, because that's one place where it's gonna hurt so much. So he does that, and that doesn't necessarily work because he still doesn't get the location. So he grabs the guy, puts him at the edge of the roof, very Batman-like actually, and just holds him there, and he's ready to throw him off the roof. And then the dude tells the location of the boy, so Matt throws him off the roof. And then Claire's like, no! And looks down, sees that he's in a dumpster. And Matt tells her, like, yeah, he's alive. Also, he tells the dude, like, you know, I don't do this just because I want to help people. I also beat up people because I enjoy it. So Matt goes to that location. And then we have the perfect hallway sequence. Oh, it's so good even to this day. It's a one-shot thing, which makes me go, that must have taken so long to get through, because of, if you look at it, but like, if anything went wrong, they needed to start the whole thing again. But I love how this fight sequence works. I mean, right now I noticed like 2 punches that were fake. I was like, you didn't even hit him there. But he goes through a whole hallway of people, goes from room to room, kicks everyone. He basically just beats everyone up. Goes and rescues the boy, but before he rescues the boy, he takes off his mask in order to reassure the boy, grabs the boy, walks out, end the episode. So in episode 3, we have a ginger guy, a man, going to a bowling alley, and he basically is like, look, can I bowl? Very nice guy, it seems. So he then asked the one guy who apparently rented the whole place, like, hey, can I bowl with you guys? And there's like, no. So he beats him to death with a bowling ball, which apparently was the plan all along. However, because he seemed nice, this will help in the legal case later on. And also the woman wasn't there for the whole thing. She just, because he escalated the fight and killed everyone. The problem is that she didn't see that. She went to the back, came out the back, and saw the fact that they were fighting, so that will help later on. So he beats someone to death with a bowling ball, hides the gun, which I like how we get Dirk Barrett, who he's like, oh, this gun, because the guy's like, I like a revolver more because you don't have a case of jamming. And Barrett is like, yeah, jamming? Come on, man, this is my material, it doesn't jam. So the gun jams. I like how there's comedy sprinkled in as well. Like, this is a very, like, dark show, but also we have a lot of comedy, so I can respect that. So he hides the gun, sits down, and just basically gets put into police custody. And then, meanwhile, with the good guys, Matt goes to talk to the... Well, he's sitting outside the church. The priest comes out and is like, you can come in for a latte if you want to talk. And Matt's like, no. So then we have Ben Urich, who asks a former criminal guy about the crime happening now. And he's like, look, man, I respect you because you... Look, when I was taken into custody, you were the only one who talked bad about me without involving my kids, and I've always respected you for that. However, nowadays there's no more respect for crime, you know, like the old ways are dead basically. And Ben really, like, the best advice Ben gets is like, just stay out of it. So Wesley goes up to Nelson and Murdoch, and he wants them to represent the case with the one guy from the bowling alley. But Matt isn't really happy about this because of how shady Wesley kind of is. But Wesley does put up a check and is like, look at how many zeros there are on this thing. And Foggy and Matt have an argument about that because Foggy is like, look, you would agree to help him if you saw how many zeros there were on this check. And Matt's like, you wouldn't have helped him if you didn't see the zeros on that check. So Matt follows Wesley, but doesn't necessarily go all that well because the dude gets into a car. Also, he has a ticking watch, which will come into play later. Don't you worry about that one. So meanwhile, Matt goes to the precinct where Foggy is already there. They talk to the... Foggy talks to the bowling ball guy, but gets like this weird feeling about him. And he tells him, no, we're not going to represent you. Then Matt comes in and is like, alright, we'll represent you. And then the tables are now flipped. So basically Matt's like, look, you were right. Sometimes we have to take some jobs that aren't really all that pretty in order to be able to keep the lights on. And the bowling ball guy basically talks about the fact that's like, you know, let's have this thing go to trial, alright? Because then they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that I was the bad guy and what I did was what I did. However, I was attacked. It was technically in self-defense. And they can't prove that it wasn't self-defense because there's no official proof. And my thought immediately goes, so does the bowling alley not have cameras? Because I feel like the places would have security cameras, right? So, wait, are there no security cameras in that bowling alley? I feel like bowling alleys have, like, security cameras in case stuff happens. Or if you just want to laugh at at some of the people. Meanwhile, Ben goes to his editor and is like, look, man, we need this out. And he's like, no, dude, because your story isn't sexy, alright? You need to talk about, like, sexy things that sell newspapers. And Ben, you know, that Ben comes back on that later on. We ain't happy about that one. So Wesley goes to the bowling alley, gets the gun, walks off. And the boys make a plan of action. And Karen basically gets effed by her last job because they're like, look, you weren't supposed to go public with this if you were under protection if you had gone to the cops, but you went to the newspaper, which isn't protection at all. But so you're fired. However, we will give you a 6-month severance package. If I was her, I would have been like, can you give me a year? And that's it. Can you just give me a year? But no, they give her 6 months. That's fine. And there are hospital trouble for Ben's wife, which is something that will happen throughout the show. I won't mention it anymore because it doesn't necessarily feed into it outside of one point, which is in the final episode. At the beginning of the final episode, we get a little bit of that. But outside of that, I'm just gonna say right now, Ben has problems with the medical people because they want to put her in like a cheaper room instead of using the expensive rooms, basically. And Ben wants to keep using the expensive rooms. He wants an extension, doesn't get that, sadly enough. And also the wife is kind of like Peggy Carter. I said that in the review, and that is because of the fact that she is like, you know, in one episode she gives advice to Ben, and then after they kiss, she's like, hello, gorgeous. Like it starts all over again. I was like, how many people have the Peggy disease? Because Peggy has like a moment with Captain America, and then she coughs and forgets everything. Meanwhile, at the trial, one of the jury members has been paid off by Fisk. So Daredevil helps the woman because apparently when she was 19 and still pretty, as the dude says, she made a certain tape of clothless stuff, trying to keep it as friendly as possible, family friendly as possible, but you get what I mean. And yeah, she might not want that out there. So Matt's like, all right, you destroy that stuff and I'll never see you in my city again. Get out. So we go into the courtroom. Matt says has a powerful speech. So Karen goes to the wife of the dead man and it basically tells her, look, there was no cheating involved. And she's like, I know that. But also she's like, I signed. Then later on she goes to Ben Urich for help, and Ben kind of tells her to stay out of it because Ben is already kind of doing this work. So Daredevil, so after this powerful speech, it turns out that someone else in the jury was paid off. So yeah, the guy gets to go free. So afterwards, Daredevil beats up the bowling ball guy in order to get the name of the boss, and he eventually cracks and is like, his name is Fisk, and then puts a spiky thing in his head because of the fact that you don't say his name. And then we have the entrance of Fisk in a museum, who then gets approached by Vanessa and they talk, and that's the end of the episode. And my goodness, here we go, Fisk has entered the scene, baby. So we start episode 4 off with the Russian brothers in prison, who are basically make knives out of a guy's ribs. That's fun. And they basically escape this Russian prison. Meanwhile, we have Daredevil continues his attack on the Russians, and one of the brothers, I think it was one of the brothers, escapes in a cab. So Matt gets stitched up by Claire, and then Wesley visits the Russians because they haven't really been delivering on the product. They have been behind on schedule, and they're basically like, look, it's the man in the mask, okay? Beforehand, they already talked about the man in the mask, but it was like, one guy, really? Come on. But this time, it's like, look, it's the man in the mask. You have to help us take care of him. So the Russians come up with the idea to talk to the guy who was thrown off a roof in episode 2. Wake him up, and maybe he has something to say. So they go to the hospital. They have this syringe. They basically unstrap the dude, gets the tube out of his throat, and then stabs him with the thing, and then he wakes up and basically talks to the Russians about Claire. So now they have a target. Meanwhile, Fisk is gonna ask Vanessa on a date, and then she's like, no. And he's like, all right, have a nice day, and walks off. And she's like, you're not gonna pursue me or anything? You're not gonna offer to buy the whole thing so I can leave early? Because basically she doesn't say no. She's just like, I'm too busy with work. But she's kind of being playful. However, woman, in today's day and age, you are not playful. You put an honest answer. Because if a guy misreads the situation, he will be charged with like criminal stuff. So don't you do that. Alright, you don't be playful. You say yes or no. If you have interest, you say yes. If you don't have interest, you say no. Simple as that. But she basically says that, and then Fisk comes out with the best line in the whole show, which makes me go, man, you are so correct. Because while Fisk isn't really a good guy, even bad guys sometimes have things that they are correct about, and this is most certainly one. Because Fisk is like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna buy the whole thing so you can leave early, because a woman that can be bought is a woman that is not worth having. And I'm like, my man, I love that scene so much because it's true. It's the same that if you put an attractive woman in front of a guy who was in a relationship, if he goes for her, he like cheating people basically. He ain't worth being in a relationship with. Simple as that. If he's gonna cheat, that's no relationship. Simple as that. That is the man that should never have a relationship ever. Meanwhile, we have the fact that Foggy and Matt argue a bit as friends do, and Claire calls Matt about the fact that help, I'm being kidnapped, because the Russians come into her apartment and kidnap her. That's fun. So Matt goes over to her apartment. He finds nothing, and then he talks to the kid from before, and and the dude is like, look, they beat me up, man. I'm sorry, but I had to tell them because they were threatening my mom. And he's like, don't worry about it. It's my fault. It's not your fault. All right, I'm gonna get her. Do you remember anything? And it's like, yeah, they got into a cab, but it wasn't in the back. It was in the front, like they own it. So, do you remember the company? Yes, it's this company. So now Matt has a target. Meanwhile, Claire goes to an auction because she's still on that hunt. And then Ben appears behind her and is like, look at these two people. They haven't bought, they're just like you. They haven't bet on anything. But my thing towards you is bet on something and then leave. You are being too dangerous and meet me over here. So she does that, and Ben basically reveals, look, I'm on your side. But you can't be reckless like that, okay? If you're reckless like that, you're gonna lose everything you have. Alright? Don't be reckless. Meanwhile, we have the Daredevil who heads over to the Russians, and Claire gets beaten up. It's like, who is he? I don't know. I call him Mike. That's all I know. So Matt turns off the lights, and then Claire's like, if you want to know so badly, why don't you ask him? I was like, oh, now she's getting tough. Now that the boyfriend has arrived, now she's tough. She kind of reminded me of Bulma there. Bulma's got this big mouth, but the moment that you punch her in the face, she's like, please help me, Vegeta. And when Vegeta comes here, it's like, yeah, now you're not so tough now, huh? Now that my husband is here, it's like, oh, now you open your mouth. But Daredevil basically takes care of everyone, rescues Claire, brings her back to his place so that she can kind of get cleaned up, and Karen Page officially works with Ben, and the Russians return, and they ain't happy about what has happened. And we have the brother, Anatoly, I think his name was. He heads over to Fisk because Wesley came in and offered the deal, and Anatoly goes over to Fisk. Literally goes over to Fisk. This was actually what I meant about the whole... I know I said in a movie theater or whatever I said. But he goes over to Fisk and is like, look, man, thank you very much for your offer. However, it interrupts the date. And that's what Fisk is not very happy about. So, he shows this Russian guy the car door by beating his head to mush. He basically crushes his skull with the car door. This show is not for your kids, okay? It might be based off a superhero property, but you get a guy's head being actually crushed with a car door, alright? You see all of the brains fall on the floor. This is not for children. And that's basically how the episode ends. So, episode 5, we have Claire who wakes up at Matt's place, takes a shower, stuff like that. And then Matt basically is fully honest with her and is like... they also could have had in the last episode a one night, like they could have had a moment together. I don't know if they did, because I don't remember everything. And in my notes, I did not really write that down. But anyway, Claire wakes up and Matt tells her that he's a lawyer. She asks, okay, but how can a blind man do all the stuff that you do? And he basically explains it in a way that he sees a world that's on fire, which is also World on Fire is the title of the episode. So I thought, hey, they set the title. I was like Peter from Family Guy, if you remember that scene. But on the other side, Matt learns the name of the main Russian, Vlad. And also, Vlad is like, well, where's my brother? Search for him. And some guy walks in, is like, look, we found him. But he is kind of, he couldn't really keep his head. So, in the pocket, very easily stashed, is just a mask for Daredevil. And I'm like, dude, that is so staged. No matter what. You could have had a little bit of black cloth in his fingers. Would have been fine. Why the whole mask in his pocket? That is so weird. But basically, Wesley and Kingpin framed the mask for that. So that's fun. And also, the Russians are officially kind of kicked out of the club, sadly enough, but very silently, because for now they're still in the club. Like, just pretend that they're still in the club, but they're not in the club, okay? They are kicked out of the club because they are useless. And also because I showed one of the brothers my car door. Wasn't really such a good idea. Meanwhile, we have Russians who have this blind guy in the car and basically are delivering some heroin because that's what the blind people do. And Madame Gao, that whole thing is about heroin and stuff like that. But Daredevil then beats them up and they're basically like, please don't take our heads off like you did with Anatoly, please. And Matt's like, what? I did what now? So he learns that he has been framed for decapitation. And we have a nice Spanish woman named Elena Cardenas. And we have a little storyline with her as well. Let's get that storyline out of the way right now so I don't have to talk about it later on. Basically, in her storyline, her apartment is being... it's one of the apartments that Fisk wants. So everyone is kind of being forced to leave. They don't want to go. So Foggy and Karen put up a fight. But eventually, they do go because of the fact that Elena dies. R.I.P. Elena. I thought she was a very, very, very sweet woman. And it was very sad to see her be dead later on. But this way I could kind of get that story out. We also get a little date between Foggy and Karen. And also, the Spanish Elena really likes Foggy. As, kind of like a son she never had. But it's a very charming little storyline within this whole, big stuff that's happening. Meanwhile, Matt goes over to Brett to ask him for help in the case, and he also went there to see what happens to the Russians that get taken in by the cops. So we have the two corrupt cops arguing over who needs to get punched in the face, and because the Russian is like, look, I can't really do this, you know, I can't really necessarily help you with what you want help with. However, what I can give you is a name. And then he's like, Fisk is the name. It's like, oh, you shouldn't have said that. It's your turn to get punched in the face. My turn? No, but I had that one last week, you know. All right, yeah. It's my turn. All right, give me a second here. All right, go. So the dude punched him in the face. It's like, oh, he's going for my gun. They start yelling, and then he shoots him in the head. Done. Matt hears this, and is like, all right, corrupt cops. Officially confirmed. We have corrupt cops. Those cops were already very shady, but now we have officially corrupt cops. So Foggy goes to Leland and Zach because that is the ones who are representing the building, while we have the fact that Foggy is representing the people of the building. However, he finds his old flame, Marcy, and learns that she is his opponent, so that is going to be a fun one. They eventually get a spark back, and she helps them later on with some papers. So Fisk goes to try and get Vanessa back. She eventually is like, no, but then she agrees, because also Vanessa's been lied to before, and she doesn't want that again. So Daredevil goes over to the corrupt cop and beats him up. And then eventually gets like a phone which has some locations on it for the Russians. And then we have Turk Barrett, who goes over to Vlad with new info about the fact that potentially the man in the mask is working for Fisk, and that they both killed him. However, this was apparently orchestrated by Wesley, which I find really weird, but okay, sure. Well, I don't know what the plan here is. You already framed the man in the mask. Why would you put the blame back on you guys? It's a bit weird. So Vlad now wants to kill both of them. And Fisk officially is 100% honest with Vanessa and is like, look, I want to help this city, alright? This city is trash. But in order to help this city, I need to tear it down first. And to be honest, nowadays, New York is already torn down. I mean, garbage bags everywhere. Which they actually make a reference to that in this show, which I found really funny, because normally in these shows, when you see New York, it's always this beautiful city. And now they actually talk about how garbage is everywhere. I love how, you know, it's like, that is exactly New York. I mean, that was recent, like, I don't know, a year or two ago, where the mayor of New York was like, here's a new invention, a garbage can. It was like, what the hell is that about? A new invention. So Matt's ready to go for Flat, and, you know, Claire also breaks up with Matt because Matt is starting to sound darker and darker, and she really doesn't like the way that Matt is sounding. So Daredevil goes after the Russians. He gets there. I think he beats one guy up, then he goes for the next guy, and then the building blows up. However, then but Vlad isn't dead. However, the plan from Fisk was we're gonna blow all the Russian stuff up, and then the corrupt cops that we have are gonna go in there and kill everyone. Simple as that. However, the man in the mask is there. Daredevil's there, so yeah, he kind of puts a bit of a wrench in that plan. So back with Daredevil, we have the fact that he fights Vlad. However, then the cops arrive, and that's the end of the episode. So starting in episode 6, Daredevil basically gives up. He doesn't want to fight the cops. However, then he learns that these are the corrupt cops, so he punches them all and escapes with Vlad. So the corrupt cops go into the buildings and kill every Russian and are like, where would Vlad go? And no answer, so everyone's dead. Daredevil and Vlad hide out in an abandoned building, and I love this episode a lot because I didn't really put it in my notes, but I love the conversations that the two of them have, because they, you know, we have a good guy and a bad guy talking, and I really like that. We get later on Fisk as well, but I love these two just talking and the sacrifice at the end. I mean, hey, Vlad's still a piece of garbage, but I liked him in this. Like, this gave him, like, character, and I like that. He's still a garbage person because he still did the human trafficking and the heroin selling, but outside of that, perfect. So, but the problem is Foggy and Karen's are with with Elena, and her building gets hit too. So they get hurt to the hospital, and there are a lot of patients, so Claire comes in on a day off. However, we have the fact that Foggy is bleeding too, and Foggy's like, oh, that's what the pain was that I was feeling in my side. Now it explains everything. And then we have Daredevil who calls Claire and is like, look, how do I cauterize a wound? She's first like, oh, you're helping that Russian. Just end him. How dare you ask me for help with that Russian? He's the one who kidnapped me. But Daredevil's like, no, look, I need your help. So she's like, all right, is there an exit wound? He's like, no. And then she's like, look, this is not like the movies. Cauterize the wound. And he's like, well, cauterize it? Shouldn't I get the bullet out first? What did I tell you about it not being like the movies? If you go poking in his side of him now, he'll die. Cauterize his wound. you'll probably get enough out of him in order to, before he potentially dies. But at least you'll get some info out of him instead of poking around inside of him and killing him right then and there. So Daredevil finds flares, he cauterizes the wound, and she very much enjoys the screams that Vlad is doing at this moment. However, because of the fact that Daredevil's cauterizing the wound, a cop just randomly walking the street hears the screams, goes inside the building. Daredevil takes him out and is like, but he already phoned in that he was going to check out the building. Daredevil takes him out and is like, who do you work for? It's like, I work for the cops. I'm a cop, okay? So Daredevil learns that he's an honest cop and basically is like, alright, tell them that it was a false alarm. So the cop betrays Daredevil's like, they're here! And, well, now everyone knows where they are. So fantastic. However, we also then have a little scene of Vlad attacking Daredevil, so that's a fun thing too. He just attacks him and is like, look, that didn't help either of us, no, but it was fun. It's like, come on, dude. And then we have the fact that basically the cops, the corrupt cops, want to go in there and just end it. However, then Ben Urich shows up and kind of throws a wrench in that whole plan. And then Fisk is like, alright, fine, show the world. Bring all of our media contacts over there, show the world. We're gonna frame him for certain things if he doesn't listen. So basically, we have the first conversation between Daredevil and Fisk over the walkie-talkie, and I love this conversation too. Fisk is basically like, look, kill Vlad and I'll let you go. If you don't do it, bad stuff is gonna happen. And Daredevil's like, yeah, no. So we have a cop on top of a roof with a sniper, and also he's like a reference towards Bullseye, so that was nice too. However, Bullseye will appear in season 3 and will be very different from this guy. So this guy isn't Bullseye. It's just he apparently somehow, for some reason, has some references to him. Anyway, the guy on the roof shoots a couple of cops and frames, well, he shoots the main cop who was gonna beat up Matt and frames Matt for it. So that was fun. So Matt now knows what needs to happen. They need to get out. So he tries to escape. Vlad helps him. They both get on the ground and almost escape. And then, yeah, the corrupt cops find them, and Daredevil takes 2 of them out. Vlad pulls up a gun, holds it towards Daredevil. Looks like he's gonna shoot him, but no, he's gonna hold the guys off. Daredevil's like, look, Vlad, we can make it out. It's like, no, staying behind, alright? You escape. You make him pay for what he did. And then he starts to sing a Russian song, and then he holds off the cops for a little bit and dies. So a heroic end to a piece of garbage. And that is basically the end of the episode. So then we start episode 7, where we have a guy running to grab a gun, and then he gets killed by a blind old man called Stick. And this episode is all about Stick. Shinobu has a package coming in called the Black Sky, and wants to make sure that everything kind of goes as follows. Leland is trying to kind of, be like, don't worry about it. Look, I got your back, you got mine. Alright, let's just go with that. And then Nobu leaves. Daredevil attacks Leland, but gets distracted by Stick, and then gets tased by Leland. And then we have the Stick and Matt backstory. So let's go over that for the next 15 years. So basically, when Matt was a kid, he was at the orphanage, and because his mom is a deadbeat. For once, the mother is actually the deadbeat. But Matt is hearing a lot of stuff. He hears everything, and he is basically getting stronger. Everyone thinks there's something wrong with him, so Stick goes up there, and he's like, alright, make sure the money is ready, and then throws keys, and Matt catches them. It's like, you're getting stronger, and he trains him. They have ice cream in the park. He licks the ice cream. It's like, what kind of ice cream do you have? That's like, I got vanilla. And it's like, no. Talk about the chemicals. It's like, oh, hey, you got dairy from 3 different farms. You got, like, this comes from there, a bunch of chemicals and all that stuff. Then he asks about the dog. And Matt's like, the dog is hungry and really wants to eat that guy's hot dog. And it's like, what dog isn't always hungry? And I like the backstory that they have. And then, like, he starts to train Matt for the war, which will be the Defenders. But for the war, he won't say what war, but what for the war. And then he trains Matt, but when Matt starts to show emotion by giving Stick a gift, Stick leaves. That's basically the backstory. So Matt's like, what are you doing here? You left 20 years ago. And then they go back to his place, and Stick basically hates everything. And it's like, look, man, at least I made a life for myself. You abandoned me because I gave you a gift. So basically, Stick is like, alright, look, there's this guy who named Nobu. He has a package coming in, and I'm gonna stop that package. And then Matt is like, what? Alright, cool, good for you. But Matt agrees to help Stick on one condition, no killing. And then Stick basically crosses his fingers and is like, alright. However, it's weird that Matt doesn't really notice the crossed fingers. He can hear, and sure. I mean, he crosses his fingers. Also, we have Karen who goes to Elena for some info, and then on the way back gets attacked by thugs and saved by Foggy. And this was kind of where I noticed that accidentally I skipped this episode, because in the next episode they talk about them. Like, I didn't see. How am I on episode 8? I don't know how that happened, but that's basically what happened. And then Matt and Stick go to stop the black sky, but Matt stops Stick when he hears the heartbeat of the kid. And Matt fights the guy. Stick leaves, and basically Stick goes to kill the kid. Matt is back at his apartment with Stick, and basically Matt's like, what? That was a kid. And it's like, no, that wasn't. That was a weapon. All right. And also, I killed it. So Matt and Stick have a bit of a fight. Matt tells him to leave. And also we have Karen, who then goes to Foggy with the info about the fact that Ben and Karen are basically working against Fisk. I mean, I don't think they know that it's Fisk. No, they don't know that it's Fisk yet. But Foggy then joins the team. And also at the end of the episode, we have the fact that Stick goes to talk to Stone, and they are part of the chase. And this is a plot point that will never be resolved because of the fact that this was kind of dropped when the Defenders came out. It's basically just stated that the chase is dead. So that's cool. We have a guy named, apparently he's called Stone. And he's basically like, do you think Matt will be ready? And Stick is like, I don't know. And that's the end of the episode. Then in episode 8, we have the fact that Wilson Fisk wakes up, gets dressed, and then in the mirror sees his younger self with a bloody shirt. And this will be the episode in which we get the fantastic backstory on Kingpin. So Karen and Foggy tell Matt that they are going after Union Allied, which also means Fisk. And Matt is like, no, this is dumb. But if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it our way. So Matt joins the team, and now everyone is on board. Meanwhile, Nobu is mad about the Black Sky loss and wants a specific building. Fisk is like, look, I never really agreed a specific building was going to be yours. I'll try my best, but there are other buildings that will probably be able. However, he wants that building specifically because the Hand wants that building. Meanwhile, back in the day, Fisk's dad wants to join the city council because of the fact that you can become rich quick that way. And basically, you know, he's not a good husband, but I wouldn't really say he's a bad husband yet. They do have an argument between husband and wife. However, it's not bad yet, but we'll get there later on. And Fisk learns that the corrupt cop Blake is gonna wake up. And he ain't gonna be too happy that Fisk had him shot. So he might spill things. So they need a way to kill him. However, he's being heavily guarded. So they get Hoffman in order to kill him. So Hoffman goes in, tries to kills him basically. However, it's one of those slow killing things. So Daredevil comes into the window because he also learns that Blake is waking up. Takes out Hoffman and then tries to get some stuff out. However, he couldn't really get anything out of Blake. And then the cops barge in, which is perfect for Hoffman. Because, look, if Hoffman killed him, what would have happened? Like, what was Hoffman's escape plan after this? He didn't have one. With Daredevil coming in, it saves his hide so cleanly. And in this episode, we also meet his tailor, Melvin Potter, who in the comic books was one of the first enemies, or maybe even the first enemy Daredevil ever fought, and later on became his ally. So that's pretty cool that guy's the tailor. He'll never become Gladiator though, sadly enough, in this show. And I like him, but I like him later on. For now, it's just like, he basically just gets them because Melvin knows how to basically sew body armor into clothes without really hindering any type of movement. Because early on it was asked, hey Matt, why don't you wear any body armor? Matt's like, they'll slow me down. So this is a way for Daredevil to potentially get a suit that will fit him, work for him, and there you go. So we go back in time once again, and we have a bloody tiny little Fisk who basically is like, look, Dad, the bully said that you are useless and that I am also useless because I am yours. So they go over there, and Fisk's dad is like, hey, so you talk bad about me, say it to my face. Like, I did not. Oh, you're calling my son a lie. No, I didn't say it, my dad said it. I just repeated it. And I'm like, you stupid. That still meant you said it. So Fisk basically beats him up and then tells his son to beat him up. Keep kicking him, keep kicking him. which will come and play later on. Well, back in present day, Madame Gao visits Fisk and isn't really happy about how sloppy Fisk has become, and tells him that, he needs to kind of sort stuff out. So let's go back in time again, and we have Fisk's dad, who, isn't really a good man, and he starts to beat Fisk's mom, and this is what I meant. Beforehand, he wasn't a bad husband yet, but now he most certainly is. He takes off his belt and beats her, and beats her, and beats her, and tells Wilson to stare at a white wall, which is also a reference to the rabbit in the snowstorm painting that he got earlier, like in episode 4. And he's like, it reminds him of his past. This is why. So he sits there, looks at the wall. However, his dad is just beating his mom. So Fisk wants to save his mom. He grabs a hammer and he wants to attack his dad. His dad turns around and is like, oh, you're weak. You're weak. Alright, you can't do it anyway. Turns back to the wife and is like, can you believe this fat little kid? And then Fisk hits him in the back of the head and is like, keep kicking him, keep kicking him. And it basically just goes insane. And it's like, it's basically kills his own dad. That's fun. To save his mom. And then his mom is like, alright, let's cut him into pieces and dump him in the river. And Fisk, because Fisk at this point, after Madame Gao's conversation, became very mad and he wanted Wesley to leave. Wesley instead brings Vanessa. So he basically tells this story to Vanessa about his past and why he wears his dad's cufflinks, because he doesn't want to be a monster like his dad. But he already is, though. And basically the gang now decides to write an article about the man in the shadows named Fisk. However, because of this conversation with Vanessa, Fisk now goes public. So that's fun. He goes public, so the article is ruined. Fantastic. And that's episode 8. So almost to episode 9, we have Daredevil and Nobu fighting. Well, we don't know it's Nobu yet, but we know it's Nobu. I mean, it is. So Daredevil fights this red ninja guy, and then we go back in time in order to see how this happened. So Matt goes inside the church with the pastor, who I also really like in the show. And he asks him about, like, do you believe in the devil or the fact that the devil's real? So the pastor's like, well, yeah. Look, I went to a village once and it was the nicest man. However, the village was being terrorized, but even the people who were working for the bad guy did not want to kill him. Like, they didn't want to, like, torture him. They asked their leader if they could have just shot him. So the leader goes over to that village in order to meet this man, in order to see how is it possible that one man can be such a charming individual that nobody wants to kill him. So he goes over there, has about an hour conversation in the dude's tent, and then drags him out into the village and kills him right there. And at that moment is when the pastor officially saw the devil. And I really like this story overall. I mean, I personally butchered it, but that's just because that's who I am. But overall, I really like this story, and it's like, yeah, the devil is real. So Ben brings info from Daredevil to the main gang about Fisk, because Daredevil went to Ben and told him about Fisk and stuff like that, but he ain't got no proof. So Ben brings that info to the gang, and they decide they're trying to figure out how to proceed, because now Fisk has gone public. Meanwhile, we have Nobu, who goes in and is very unhappy with Fisk about the building that he's not getting, and he breaks through a guy named Francis. But to be honest, how threatening. Why would you put a guy at the front door named Francis? How threatening could a guy be named Francis? That's a Daredevil. No, that's a reference to Deadpool, by the way. But they plan to set a trap for Daredevil. So they try to figure out what to do about Fisk. So Matt decides to go to the art gallery, because there was a woman with Fisk during his public announcement as well. So he goes over to the art gallery, which is actually the most suspicious thing you could probably do as a blind man in an art gallery. What are you doing here? But he goes in. He basically is like, so I want to, I kind of want to get inside the head of the man who, because I don't know what to do. Look, women tell me that my apartment is kind of bland, and I kind of want to get some art for the women. So, what does a man who has conquered your heart want? And at that point, the Fisk walks in, and we have the official first face-to-face between Daredevil and Kingpin. And it's so chilling, dude. That scene is so chilling. It feels so good. It's like they don't know who they are, but they do. Like, Matt knows that is Fisk. That is the bad guy we're trying to stop. But Fisk doesn't know that this is the man in the mask, or Daredevil. So it's like, it is a great conversation. So Matt leaves. He goes to the church and talks to the guy. and talks to the pastor, and basically is like, look, he has someone who loves him. I can't kill Fisk because he has someone who loves him. And then the dude is like, I don't think you were trying to find a reason to... I think you were... No. I think what you were truly doing was going there to find a reason not to kill Fisk. Because you wanted to kill Fisk, but you needed a reason not to. Because you don't want to go that far. And I love the fact that Daredevil doesn't go that far, even though every other MCU hero does. I mean, Iron Man, Captain America just chop people in half for the fun of it all. Well, not really, but they blow people up for the fun of it all. But Daredevil doesn't do that. I like that about Daredevil. They're probably gonna ruin that in the future. Not like in an Avengers movie. Kind of like what they did with Spider-Man in Infinity War. Endgame. But Fisk hires a junkie, basically, in order to kill Elena. In order to lure Daredevil to a specific location. So that's great. And also Fisk lies about caring for her. And Matt gets so upset. So he once again is on the I'm gonna kill this guy mindset. Because he was on that. Then met Vanessa, then was off it, but now Elena's dead. He's once again on it. So he goes around, tries to find the right junkie, finds the right junkie, and basically interrogates him into telling where he needs to go. He's like, I went to the pier. So Matt goes over there. However, turns out it was a trap. So a guy in red arrives, which is Nobu. And they start to have a fight, and eventually Daredevil sets Nobu on fire by accident because he is losing. He's getting cut up. And then Fisk walks in and is like, look, man, I didn't really care who won this fight. I mean, preferably both of you killed each other, but that didn't happen. And I don't really care about Nobu. Also, I'm gonna beat you up now. So they have a little bit of a scuffle, but it's not really a scuffle because Daredevil's been cut so much he can barely put up a fight. But he does his best. He fights against him and eventually jumps out the window in order to escape. Goes back home, and then Foggy, who is also at his home, knocks on his door, and then hears a loud noise, so he goes in through the other door, and finds the man in the mask, but takes, before calling the cops, takes off his mask, is like, oh, it's Matt! So now we have Nelson v. Murdoch, which is the title of the next episode. So in the next episode, we have the fact that Matt wakes up, and Foggy is very angry, and apparently Foggy called Claire in order to fix up Matt. And Matt, we get the Matt and Foggy origin story. How they met, where basically was just in a dorm room. Matt was going over there, and Foggy makes a bit of a gay remark, but isn't gay, because like, wow, the ladies must love you. I mean, you have the blind thing going on, you're handsome, and Matt's like, I'm not into you. It's like, oh, no, I didn't mean it like that. You know, it must be good with the ladies, that kind of stuff. Anyway, but they become lifelong friends. We also get a nice little reference towards Elektra, which I thought was nice, because they later on they're like, oh, hey, you took Spanish, I took whatever pumpkin language I took. And, you know, Foggy's like, you took Spanish because of that Greek girl. It's like, that is Elektra. It's like, God, it's so cool. Who will appear next season. So, yeah, stay tuned for that one. Gonna take me a while to get to that season, though, because the next up I have to go through the whole Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But I like the backstory, the friendship that they form. And now it's kind of falling apart, because Foggy's like, alright, Foggy learns now everything about Matt. The world on fire stuff, the fact that... Because basically, Matt and Foggy just talk in this episode. We get other scenes as well, but we do not get Daredevil. But Matt and Foggy basically talk. Foggy's very angry. Also, Matt reveals that it's like, look, I can hear your heartbeat, and I can tell when you're lying, which is also something that Foggy's like, so every time I lied to you, you knew. Also, that is an invasion of privacy. But basically, the friendship is broken now. I also like the whole avocados at law. It really shows what good of a friendship that they had and how much Daredevil has basically destroyed that. Meanwhile, back with the other characters, we have the fact that Madame Gao is worried about Fisk. Is worried that Fisk will turn on her, and then he's like, no, because you're the only one I actually have respect for. And the others don't. And then she's also kind of worried about Vanessa and stuff like that, where it's like, you know, it's kind of making you weaker. He's like, don't worry about it. And Ben basically gives up because he gives the story of, the whole story to Karen. Which made me go, wait, what? But did the show itself forget about the fact that Karen isn't allowed to talk about this? Like, well, what are you gonna do? She's not allowed to talk about this. She has signed for that thing. Come on. However, then Karen starts to become a little bit sus, which I don't like. Because Karen is then like, because of the fact that Ben's wife is gonna get kicked out of the hospital soon. and they need a new place, and he's been looking around but can't find anything. So Karen's like, I know something. So they go over there, and it's like, look, this place is too luxurious. We can't stay here. And she's like, let's look around the place. So they can look around the place, and then it's like, let's talk to one of the locals. So they go into the room, and it's like, oh, hey, lady, how do you like it here? What was your life like? Oh, you said you had husbands. Did you have any kids with your first husband? And oh my god, this is the mummy of Wilson Fisk, who he has apparently stated in interviews that was dead. So they basically learn that Fisk killed his dad to save his mom. Cool, whatever. And we also get a little bit of a backstory of Matt and Foggy at Roxxon, which is actually, you know, pretty cool for Matt as well, because like, there's an old guy who basically apparently told secrets, but only to his doctor. But he told secrets about the fact that, about how bad it is at Roxxon, and now Roxxon is suing the guy who already basically got effed by working for Roxxon, and now Roxxon is furthering the effing with, you know, for going from a lowercase f to a capital caps lock F, and basically suing the guy. And Matt's like, look, the dude didn't lie. Let's leave. Let's start our own practice where we can help the little guys. And then Foggy just grabs a box, and Matt's like, what are you doing? It's like, well, I'm gonna fit as many as much in here as I can, because I don't know when will be the next time when I will get to eat. So they agree. Nelson and Murdoch is officially going to become a thing. He even writes it on a napkin, which I like, because Matt is like, he can't really necessarily feel that. It needs to stick out a little bit in order. That's how Braille works and how feeling works. But he goes over, it feels like a napkin. No, it's our sign. It's like, alright, cool. So they officially decide that. However, Foggy wants to know, okay, how did you go from that to becoming a vigilante? And Matt basically tells this really dark story about the fact, like, look, I used to listen to the sirens and pretend stories with them in order to see what they were for. And however, now I know what they are for. And when I first started living here, across the street, there was a guy who, when his wife was asleep, would go into his own child's room, his daughter's room, little daughter, and he would do things to her. And you can probably imagine what. So Matt called Child Protective Services. However, the wife didn't believe it, and the dad, he was smart. He didn't leave any trace of what he did, which means, oh my god, there was potential for actual stuff happening. But because of the fact that the wife didn't believe it, the dad kind of got away with it. So Matt took stuff in his own hands and beat the dude up and was like, look, if you touch your daughter again, I will know, and next time I will not be this nice. And that was the official origin for Daredevil. And I'm gonna be honest here, I can't think of a better origin story. A guy going into his daughter's room and doing stuff to her is a fantastic origin story for, like, why Matt does what he does. It's not like he saw someone rob someone. No, this is a serious thing, and he tried it the normal way, didn't work out, so now he's doing it his way. I love that stuff. Meanwhile, at Fisk has a gala, basically a party, and some people over there get poisoned, and Vanessa also gets poisoned. And basically, Foggy makes Matt choose between Daredevil or his friendship, and Matt chooses Daredevil, and Foggy throws away the sign, and that's the end of the episode. Starting in episode 11, we have the fact that Vanessa is being brought into the episode, and I do like how Fisk's like, do you know who I am? And it's like, doesn't matter, we have rules, alright? Leave. Because we are about to head towards the end. So yes, this hour-and-a-half long video is almost at an end. We have 3 more episodes to go, so this will be about a 2-hour video. Oh god. But the special doctor, the rich people doctor, is apparently being flown in. So that's good. Meanwhile, we have Karen who visits Matt. And Matt is like, oh, I got hit by a Japanese car. Which I thought was funny. Because, like, well, Nobu's Japanese, I think. So that's funny. And she doesn't buy the story. She's like, don't lie to me. You know what? Fine, lie to me. I don't care. Because of the fact that I got some news. Because I went to visit Fisk's mom. And it's like, what? You did what now? That's not a good idea. Do not do that. Yeah, and apparently Fisk killed his dad. And then Matt basically lays out why that is a problem. Because, like, oh yeah, but it's the ramblings of an old woman. And also he was protecting his mom. So it doesn't really get us anything. And even then, he could just spin it. It's too easy to spin this story. So we don't really have anything yet. Meanwhile, Foggy wakes up at Marcy's place. And we learn that the other people are who were poisoned have died. So we have some issues. However, we need to figure out who did it. So Wesley sends Leland to talk to Gao. And Leland is like, okay, and what if she did it? Then you will be missed. I like that. You will be missed. He's already writing him off. It's like, done. So Matt now also, because of the fact that he talks to Claire about about Fisk, and Matt cut Fisk, but it didn't cut him because of the fact he was wearing some kind of armor. He needs to find that Taylor guy. So that is also what potentially this episode or the next one is going to be all about. Meanwhile, Ben is mad at Karen for lying and starts to explain in detail why the plan won't work. Daredevil goes to Barrett to learn where Fisk got his clothes from, and Barrett's like, I don't know. And then later on he's like, okay, I'll give you the location. And Leland starts to fully question if Kingpin should be the... And then Wesley's like, don't worry about it. Also, Wesley got a phone call earlier, but he couldn't pick up. So now he calls back. It's like, oh, hey, Fisk's mom, what's up? What do you mean people came to visit you? Who exactly? So Wesley learns that Karen was the one who visited Fisk's mom. So that's fun. Also, we have Daredevil who visits the tailor, Potters, and he has a bit of a little fight with him. But eventually, and this is where Potters really became a likable character, because he's like mentally ill, but also he's not a bad guy. He just gets manipulated by people, and I feel like that's also how he initially got into trouble. However, this time, he doesn't want to do trouble anymore. No more working for bad people. However, Fisk threatened his Betsy, which is actually a real person who we will actually see, I think, in Season 3. I think in Season 3 we'll see him, so that's fun. And Matt is like, don't worry, I'll protect Betsy, okay? Don't worry about it, alright? But I need you to make me a suit. So Potters agrees, and there we go. Melvin now will make a suit for Daredevil. Don't worry, that will come in the final episode. And Wesley kidnaps Karen, and then starts to offer her basically a job because of how resourceful she is, and puts a gun on the table. However, then he gets a call. Karen picks up the gun, and Fisk is the one calling, by the way. But Karen picks up the gun, and he's like, you really think I would leave a gun on the table with a bullet in it? And she's like, do you really think that this is the first time I killed someone? And then she shoots him dead. Kills Wesley, and that's the end of the episode. Speaking of which, in episode 12, Karen gets rid of the gun, goes home, gets a drink, goes to the shower, goes to sleep, and then has a little dream about Kingpin. And Kingpin basically is just like, you know what, the first time killing someone, yeah, that is really the one that will haunt you. However, the more you do it, the easier it's gonna get. And Kingpin then learns that Wesley is now dead and beats Francis, and is like, come on, dude. I mean, Deadpool already made enough fun of the Francis. We don't need another Francis being beaten. And then Daredevil also asks Ben about the heroin from Gao, which means that this is the episode in which we go after Gao. We already went after the Russians. We technically had Nobu. Now we go after Gao. Like I said, we're basically like a video game. And he does get some information about it, about these blind people. So Matt starts following a blind person. We also have Foggy who asks Marcy for help. We have Karen, we have the fact that Karen tells Ben that she thinks that Fisk knows that they visited his mom, and doesn't say why. She's not like, oh yeah, because of the fact that I was kidnapped and shot the dude. No, she's like, it's a feeling. Women's intuition. So Matt follows this Chinese person. However, he then goes, the Chinese person gets into a car. Matt goes into an alley, but throws away his walking stick. I'm like, why did you do that? We know that thing can be folded up. So I would have liked it more if he had a slick folding up, puts it in his pocket, climbs up everything, and just goes, follows the car to the place where it needs to go. And then he learns the secret code, and I'll see you guys tonight for that one. So, because of what Karen has said, we have the fact that Ben writes up a story about how Kingpin killed his dad, and goes over to Ellison, the editor, and is like, look, we need, or I don't know if he's the editor, he's the boss, I guess. But he's like, we need to print this. And it's like, this story is sexy. And then he's like, you're sounding like a whore. It's like, I learned that from you. And then he accuses Ellison of working with Fisk, working for Fisk. He is off, but not entirely, because someone at that place does work for Fisk. However, it's not him. So Daredevil attacks Madame Gao's operation. However, it doesn't really go too well. And also, for some reason, Madame Gao has superpowers. So he gets everyone out. He escapes, but Madame Gao's building is up in flames. And Kingpin has a conversation with Leland, then gets a call, and then leaves. Leland then goes to Gao, and basically they talk about how, it was their plan to drug the party. And Gao's like, I'm going home. It's like, oh, to China, much further away. And if you watch Iron Fist, you kind of know what that means. But Kingpin learns who visited his mom. Then we have the fact that Ben is gonna write a blog post because that's the only way to kind of get the word out. And Matt kind of breaks down to Karen about everything. However, he doesn't tell her that he's Daredevil. But outside of that, he like basically his personal problems, he kind of throws that on her. And then Kingpin visits Ben and is like, "All right, you talk to me, mummy. I do not like that. Was there anyone else who was with you when you talked to my mummy?" And Ben is like, "No. And also, if you're gonna threaten me," and then the Kingpin's like, "I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to kill you," and then chokes him out. And that's the end. Now we are in the final episode. So we start the final episode with the funeral for Ben, R.I.P. the boy. And then his wife is also at that funeral, and she's like, tells Karen that not to blame herself, and that Ben talked about her a lot, kind of setting up her future at being a reporter, which is what her future kind of holds for a little bit in this saga, until it kind of then goes back, which we'll get there when we get there. But I remember at the end of season 3, it's like she goes back to Nelson and Murdoch, and Matt is very angry about this stuff. So Fisk goes over to Leland and questions him about the numbers not really lining up, and then Leland reveals, "Look, I was the one who poisoned your gala, and also I took a bunch of your money, and I have Hoffman. You can have Hoffman if you allow me to get away with half of your money. I'm a reasonable guy, so I'm only leaving with half." And he's like, "No, you hurt Vanessa." And he beats him and throws him down an elevator shaft and kills him. And then the manhunt begins for Hoffman, who can blow this whole thing open. However, we have Matt and Foggy, who rejoin for the team. They visit Brett, and this time I like the conversation where it's like, "Do you need to stop bringing my mom cigars? Like, dude, these are the expensive ones. Oh, so before you were buying cheap ones, huh?" I like that. So 2 cops come out. They tell Brett that he's needed inside. They go over to the car, but Matt's super hearing activates because that was one of the cops that he beat up. So he hears that, and they talk about Hoffman. So now the search begins for Hoffman. So they're going through a bunch of stuff that Marcy had printed out. And also I like the one conversation where it's like, "How did she get all of this out?" It's like, Marcy can be very persuasive. I'm like, a woman with a very nice looking chest can get away with murder if she wanted to. But they go through and they eventually find the location, because at one point there were like 137 buildings owned. And then the next paper says that there are only 136. However, the balance on the bank never changed. So that means that the building is still in their ownership because they didn't sell it off. So Matt goes over there as Daredevil in order to stop that stuff, in order to get Hoffman. And Foggy tries to stop him, but Matt's like, "Look, if I don't go, this is where we meet reality, okay? If I don't go, Fisk leaves. Fisk get away with everything, okay? So one chance to stop him, and there's no way he's gonna be able to make it to the cops without my help." So Matt goes over there, and he's right, because at that point, the corrupt cops walk in, shoot the guys, and are ready to shoot him. However, Daredevil takes out the corrupt cops and basically is like, "Look, you have a deal. I will give you a golden opportunity. Turn yourself in." And he's like, "Look, most of the cops are owned by Fisk." "Yep, but Brett isn't, so turn yourself in with Brett, and I'll make sure you'll get there." And he punched him in the face. It's like, "Go." So he goes. Fisk's whole operation gets blown wide open. Fisk and all of his people get arrested. But I do like how Fisk makes it a priority to ask Vanessa to marry him, kind of. Weird that Vanessa doesn't get arrested, though. I found that always weird. So Vanessa goes upstairs to the helicopter and basically waits for Fisk. And everyone gets arrested. So many people get arrested who work for Fisk. And everything looks good. However, the first time when I watched this, I was like, "Alright, so how many more minutes are left?" And it's about 20 minutes or 25 minutes. So I was like, "Yeah, we're not done." And I was right. We are not done yet. Because at this point, Fisk then escapes. He escapes prison. And now we need Daredevil to stop Fisk once and for all. Not kill him, though, but stop him. So Matt goes over to Melvin. He gets a new suit. And he heads over for Fisk. And we have the official Daredevil versus Fisk fight scene. And I love how it's like, you basically have quick versus power. Because Fisk, he's strong, but he's big, so he can't move all that fast. Matt is fast, but Fisk can take a lot. And I love how this fight works. They fight each other, but eventually Matt beats him. He tells Brett, like, because he told Brett before, he said something to him, which I forgot what he said, but he said something to him, and he says that now again. It's like, "Oh, you're that guy. You're the Devil of Hell's Kitchen." So he gets the official name Daredevil, and now Nelson and Murdoch are officially back in business. Fisk has been locked up, and everything is fine. Also, Vanessa is out of the city. Everything is great. We've done it. We've won, and my goodness, what a season! Oh my god, this recording has been 2 hours. I have to sift through 2 hours of footage in order to get through this. Ah, well, I'll figure it out. But overall, I thought this season was absolute perfection. The way that we tackle Fisk's empire, the way that we have betrayals within betrayals, it is so good. The way that everything works. I love even the side characters, the little... Like, I love how there's comedy in this show. It's like the perfect blend of MCU, weirdly enough. Because there's funny moments and there's serious moments. And nowadays, it's just every serious moment gets thrown away because of a funny moment. And it just ruins everything. But this is probably perfect. So, yeah. Comment down below and let me know your spoilery thoughts on Daredevil Season 1. My goodness, I love this show. I also like the new suit. But to be honest, I do kind of miss the old one. But I like the new suit as well. We'll get to see a lot more of this suit in Season 2 and also in The Defenders. And I'm very excited about that. But like I said, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on Daredevil Season 2. And with that being said, thank you all so very much for watching. And I hope you guys have enjoyed. And if you did, please like button, subscribe if you're new if you've done so already. Turn on notifications and don't forget to check out my Let's Play channel. Link in the description and at the end of the video. Now I'm going to go and edit this behemoth down to hopefully an hour-and-a-half long review. A spoiler talk. And then I'm going to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1. And do a video on that one, which is already uploaded. But what will happen next time for you guys is we're gonna be heading to the purple world of Jessica Jones Season 1. Another fantastic season, and I can't wait to talk about it with you guys. So I'll see you then, hopefully. Bye!